Good day, students. I hope everybody is doing well. Great. Today, our main strand is number. Our substrand is counting, representation, and cardinalities. Our previous lesson really discussed about one of the methods that we use to model numbers, and that was multi-base block. Today, we are going to continue from then and then proceed to another method that we can use to model a given numbers by using a graph sheet method or a graphical method. Again, we will also talk about how to use the token currency, how to use the money to model a given numbers or a situation. Okay, good. So without waste my time, let me proceed. Per your level, you're supposed to know how to model number quantities up to 1 million and model money quantities up to 1 million. There are three methods used to model number quantities or model quantities up to 1 million. Two of these methods are used to model number quantities up to 1 million, and other one is used to model money quantities up to 1 million. Multi-base block and graph sheet methods are used to model number quantities up to 1 million. The difference is that we have the number quantities and money quantity. When you are dealing with the number quantity, we use only the two methods, multi-base block and graph sheet method. But when you're using the money quantities, the only method that will help you to model is the token currency method. And we have done with the multi-base block, our previous video. Then we will continue with the graph sheet method and then proceed to the token currency method. Okay, so the first one that we tackled this morning is the graph sheet method. The graph sheet method, which means that we only use the graph book to model the quantity given. This method is used to model number quantities up to 1 million. Like I said, the number quantities, we have only two methods that we can use to deal with that. The first one is the multi-base block, where we use a block to model in that order. For this one here, the graph sheet method has three keys to model the number quantities, which include a square, a rod or long, a flat. Unlike using the multi-base block where we're using a key. So the difference between the multi-base block against the graph sheet is that under the multi-base, we use keys, but under graphical method, we use square in that order. These keys derive their number quantities based on the process, meaning their quantity of number depends on the figures given. Then it means that won't mean the keys way in good. It depends on the question. Question behind the keys are the. So the only thing that you have to keep in mind is the what? The procedure, how you calculate for other keys. I said under the graph sheet method, we have only three keys to model the number. One is a square. The first key under graph sheet is a square, because when you're using the graph sheet, it's made up of several squares. So you choose the small square within that square. When you have the typical graph sheet, you could see clearly that we have some deep line and some faint line. From a deep line to a faint line is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, which is 1 square. That's exactly what we use, not a deep line to deep line. From a deep line to a deep line will be the 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters, which is above a square. Okay, that one, it will be a bigger square, but you use the smaller square within a graph sheet. Good. The quantity for the first key, which is the square, is very important to the rest of the keys like rod and flat. Under the multi-base block, we have 4 keys, but under graph sheet method, we have only 3 keys. If a figure ends with no zero, when you have a figure and there's no zero at the end, how to choose your first key? If a figure ends with no zero, then a square will be used to represent 1. That is a square equal to 1. So any number that have been given to you to model and the number ends with no zero, there's no zero at the end, then we choose a square to represent 1. While the rest of the keys will be 10 times the previous key. So if a square is 1, then a rod or long will be the 10 times a square, and that will be 10, okay? Because obviously a square is 1, so a rod is 10 times a square, so 10 times 1, that will give you 10. And a flat will be the 10 times a rod. So now we have gotten our rod to be 10. Then a flat is 10 times a rod. A rod is 10. So when you multiply 10 by 10, then you get your what? 100. Okay, good. So always the difference is 2 times 10 when you multiply by 10. But the first key depends on the question type. If a figure ends with 1 0, then a square will be used to represent 10. That is, a square is equal to 10. If you have a number that ends with only 1 0, then when you're choosing your first key, it means a square will be used to represent the 10, okay? Because when a figure ends with 1 0, our square will be 10. Then it follow in that order. So once a square is 10, the next key, which is the rod after the square or long, will be 10 times the square. So that this time a square is 10. So 10 times 10 will give you 100 for the rod or long. And the flat will also be the 10 times a rod or long. This time our flat will be 10 times a rod. Rod is 100, then we multiply, okay, by 10. If a figure ends with 2 zeros, then a square will be used to represent 100. If a figure ends with 2 zeros, then a square will be used to represent 100. Then our square, which is the smaller key, will be equal to 100, and then the other keys will follow by multiply by 10 by 10. Okay, so why the rest of the key will be 10 times the previous key, that is, a rod will be the 10 times a square, and then a square here, and a flat is also equal to 10 times a rod. So what you get under a rod will be used to multiply by 10, that will be equal to the flat. Now, if a figure ends with 3 zeros, then a square will be used to represent 1000. So that is why I said that the choosing of a square based on the question depends on the digits. Like with no zero will be equal to 1, with 1 0 will be equal to 10, with 2 zeros will be equal to 100, and with 3 0, which is the maximum, number that you get, that will be equal to 1,000. And assuming that a square is 1,000, then a rod will be 10 times 1,000. Then you get your rod. So the rod will be 10,000. Then a flat will be 10 times what? A rod, which is 10,000 times 10. That will be 100,000. Okay, good. So make sure that you write this one in your notebook. Okay, good. So let's see how we can do practical example and solve one or two examples too. Okay, good. Now, example. Model the number below by using graph sheets or graph sheet method or graphical method. You are going to model 13,500 by using our graph sheet method. It's rather unfortunate that we don't have the graph book here. And I hope we did this in the class, so let's take it like that. Or when you get your graph book, remember I said the small square, which is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, is used, not from a deep line to deep line. We don't use the 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. So be careful by choosing your square, because a square that we use is from a deep line to a faint line, or from a faint line to deep line. Okay, small square in on your graph sheet. Okay, not from a deep line to deep line. That square is too big. So be mindful of choosing your square. Okay, good. Now, once you have this kind of questions using the graph sheet, you write your solution. Okay, then once you are done with the solution, now that you are going to show every workings that you're supposed to do, and that one we term it as what? Illustration. You must illustrate every letter before you model. Okay, so let's do our illustration, but before then you must write your illustration. Good. Now we have our illustration here. After the illustration, then you write the questions and write their rev value. When you talk about the rev value, is the face value times what? The place value. So the number itself times its position, that will give you what? The rev value. So here, the number is 1 3. Let me space is 1 3 5 0 0. Now you have to indicate the positions at the top here. Okay, let's write something here. Here is once. Okay, tens, 100, 1,000, then tens of thousand. Good. Now we started with the last digit here, because you can't write the real value for the 0, 0, because the 0 times 1 will give you the same as 0, and 0 times 10 here will give you the same as 0. But this time, we have the face value of 5 here times the place value, which is the 100. So here, our number here, 5, the 5 times 100, that will give you 500. Okay, so here will be 500. That will be 500. Okay, now this number 2, 3 times 1000, 3 as a face value multiplied by the place value of the thousands. That will be 3 times 1000. That will give you what? 3000. Okay, that will give you 3000. 3000. Okay, good. Now, model the number below by using a graph sheet method. We have the 13,500. That is the number that you are going to model. And because the 13,500 end with 2 zeros, then our key or the material that will be needed, the least one, which is a square, will be used to represent 100, like we said it earlier on. And then followed by the next material, which is rod or long, which is always 10 times a square or 10 times the previous material. Then followed by a flat. This is also 10 times a rod or long. So once we have decided to choose a square equal to 100, because the number here ends with 20, that is why our square equal to 100. Then a rod will be the 10 times the square, which is what? 1000. When you multiply 10 by 100, you get 1000. Then a flat will also be the 10 times a rod or long, and that will be our 10,000. With this number, you have to write their real value. Their real value here depends on the face value times what, or multiplied by the place where the number occupies. So when you take the 500, or you take the last three digits here, which is the 5, that's the only number that you can write the real value, because the last 20 here, the 0 times 1 here will give you 0, 0 times 10 will give you 0, so which is empty. So the number, we deal with the immediate number. The number here is 5, which is the same as the face value, multiplied by the where the number occupies. This 5 here occupies at the hundredths position. So when you multiply, that is what? The real value of 5 here. So that will give you what? 500. Then you come to the 3 here. The 3 is the face value. Then this 3 here is occupies in the thousandth positions. It has been placed in the thousandth position. So the real value here will be the 3 times the 1000. That will give you the 3000. Now, when you come to the tens of thousand means 10,000. Then only number that is occupies the tens of thousand is 1 here. This 1 here occupies the tens of thousand. Therefore, the real value here is 1 times 10,000. That will give you 10,000. Good. Once we have done, because we have already choose our keys, depends on the question. So that is why it's not always that the question is your key started with a square will be equal to 1000. Sometimes it will also start with what? Will be equal to 10, where the last digit is what? Only 10. Okay. Then in that order, then you start multiplying by 10 times to get the previous material. Now, once we have the 500 and we have already established our materials here, you have a square, one square that will be used will be equal to 100. A rod or one rod that will be drawn is equal to 1,000. And a flat that will be equal to what? 10,000. When you have this one, now we have the 500. 500, then you choose a material that is closer or equal to 500. And per our material listed here, you could see clearly that a square, which is 100, was much closer to 500. Then you choose our square. How many square that will be much approximate to 500? Then we can also realize that a square is 100. Then when you multiply by the 5, or the 5 times of this square here will give you the 500. Then you come to the 3,000. The 3,000, the materials here, that will be much closer to 3,000 or approximate to 3,000 is what? A rod or long, because we can choose a square for 3,000. The number that is closer or approximate to that is 1,000, because a rod is equal to 1,000. Therefore, you choose our rod or long. Then how many rods that can be drawn to represent this 3,000? 3 times, okay? So 3 times the 1,000 will give you the 3,000. Then the last number that we need to model by using the graph sheet. The graph sheet have only 3 keys: a square, a rod or long, and a flat. Now we have the 3,000. We have done with the 3,000. Then you move on to the 10,000. When you have the 10,000, we have only a material that can be closer or equal to 10,000. That material is called what? A flat. A flat is equal to 10,000, okay? And we have only 10,000, which means that you draw only one flat. Because one flat stands for 10,000. So when you draw one flat, that ends it, okay? Good. So we are going to model the numbers. Now you are going to model the numbers here. You first model a square. So let me model my square here. So you write the square. Square is equal to 100, and you're supposed to model 5, okay? Times 5. That will be much approximate or equal to 5,000, okay? Then you have to model this number. So you have a square here. This is square. Going to model 5 times. Good. One, two, three, four, 5. We are done with the square. Now we are moving on to a rod. Per the question, you're supposed to draw or model 3 rod, and 3 rod represent 10 square. Okay, then a rod. Have our rod here. A rod or long equal to one rod equal to 1,000 and 1,000, and you're supposed to model 3 that will be much equal to 3,000 for that number. Okay. And remember, I said a rod is made up of what? 10 squares. That is why we multiply the 100 by 10. So you're going to draw 10 square in a vertical or horizontal form. So our rod here will be, let me choose different 10. Okay. Then 10 square, 2, let me count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this one is 10. Let me put this one in. Okay. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is one rod. Okay. Drawing 3. Okay. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you come to this side. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then leave it a flat. A flat which is equal to 10,000 because you're going to draw only one. That will be much approximate to 10,000. Okay. To draw only one flat. A flat is also made up of 10 rows. Okay. Good. One, two, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, this one will be here. And divide it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe it's 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. We are done with what? A flat. Okay. Good. Now, these are the models, okay, using patterns to represent numbers. And these are the patterns when you're using the graph sheet method. This is how a square and a rod and a flat looks like. Okay, good. See you later. Bye.